All right, y'all. So this story right here is kind of a big deal. This is amazing. So Axios reports that the U.S. hits a new low in the World Happiness Report. So this is something we've talked about before, this World Happiness Report, because there's a lot you can learn from just looking at who self-reports being the happiest in the various countries around the world. So we had a big slip. So here, let me show you. So this is what it looks like. Number 1, Finland. Number 2, Denmark. Number 3, Iceland, Sweden. We're all the way down here now. The UAE and Slovenia are happier than us at the moment. So here's what they say. The U.S. hit an all-time low ranking in the annual World Happiness Report, tumbling 8 spots to 23rd. Some countries like Finland and Denmark consistently rank among the world's happiest. The U.S. isn't one of them. By the way, we're going to get why is that Finland and Denmark and a lot of the Nordic countries, Scandinavian countries, they always rank pretty high up there. I wonder. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. A steady supply of studies has found that Americans feel glum about issues ranging from loneliness to the economy to the country's political leadership. It's the first time since the report launched 12 years ago that the U.S. did not rank among the world's 20th happy countries. 20 happiest countries. Jesus, man. Gallup, whose data powers the World Happiness Report, pointed to Americans under 30 feeling worse about their lives for the steep drop. Today's young people report feeling less supported by friends and family, less free to make life choices, more stressed, and less satisfied with their living conditions. Lara Aknin, an editor of the report, told Axios, people under 30 today also feel less confident in government and have increased perceptions of corruption. She added, gee, I wonder why they perceive more corruption. Could it be because there's a shitload of corruption that we've all witnessed now on a daily basis? Yeah, I wonder. The report also found that older people are now happier than young people in North America, the opposite of many other regions. Many Americans have expressed low levels of trust in the political system and fears of political violence. Again, gee, I wonder why they fear political violence. Could it be because we had political violence not that long ago? You can go all the way back to the George Floyd protests and riots. You can go back to January 6th and the storming of the Capitol and the whole fraudulent elector scheme. Everything is very unstable at the moment. And that's not just a perception. That's the reality. The pandemic also shed light on the high rates of loneliness hitting America's younger generations. The U.S. has also been combating inflation rates that have affected everything from dining out to the real estate market. And look, it's also true to point out, this generation, so I was the beginning of the generation that grew up and there was a lot of technology, right? I remember when I was a kid, I had AOL and AIM, right? The instant messenger thing. And, you'd do a decent amount of computer time. I remember Napster and LimeWire and all that stuff. But ultimately, it came down to what? An hour or two a day on the computer. And then most of the time, and then you'd watch an hour of TV or whatever. But there was still a decent amount of interaction in real life, getting out there, playing sports, all stuff like that. This next generation is even more technological, always on TikTok, always on Instagram, always on YouTube. By the way, stay on YouTube, baby. That one gets exempt from any sort of criticism I'm about to do right now. But yeah, you do get the sense, especially with when we had the pandemic and we had lockdowns. Now it's like people are immersed in a virtual world, the overwhelming majority of the time. And I'm not somebody who's just against social media. I'm not. And I use Twitter. Obviously, my job is YouTube, right? But I do think everything needs to be kind of balanced. And I think we got a little out of balance where there's too much of that and not enough in-person stuff, not enough playing sports, getting outside, touching grass, as the kids would say. So I think that definitely plays a part in it. Smaller than what some people would pin it literally all on just that. That I don't agree with. I think it's part of the problem. But the other thing, as they're pointing out, is that young people have zero faith in the system. Zero. And that's earned. They're not wrong for thinking that. But, when you look at a political system where 92% of the time, the people who raise the most money on the campaign trail end up winning, and then you track that money and you find it's all coming from billionaires and multinational corporations, and that's who these politicians are serving instead of the people, it's easy to get cynical because you should get cynical. That's the proper reaction to that. What we need to do is change that. But obviously that's easier said than done. But kids understand, oh, shit is kind of fucked, right? And by the way, when you look at like, we've showed this chart before. I don't have it up right now, but when it comes to like the percentage of the national wealth that is owned and you break it down by generation, boomers are off the fucking chart with the amount of wealth they hold. Gen X is a big plummet, but they're like in the middle. And then millennials and Gen Z are like barely a fucking blip. We have like none of the national wealth compared to the boomers. And to be fair, the Gen Xers have it almost as rough as millennials and Gen Z because they're closer to us than they are to the boomers, right? Now, part of that is just a function of the longer you're alive and the more you work, the more money you're going to gain. Yes, that's true. But when you compare where we are now as younger generations to where they were at this age, back when they were our age, they were doing way better. They were just doing way better. So, man, we plummeted outside of that top 20, man. So now, what lessons can we learn here? Well, like I said, Finland, Denmark, Iceland, Sweden, a lot of these countries are the happiest. By the way, the fact that Israel is number 5, it's like, Jesus Christ. Anyway, Finland, Denmark, Iceland, Sweden, the top ones. So a lot of the Nordic countries, Scandinavian countries, and they consistently rank at the top of the happiness ranking. Well, why is that? Well, one of the things we could point to, the strength of trade unions in Nordic politics and economics. The Nordic countries continue to have the highest union density in the world. In 2016, of all blue and white-collar workers, membership of trade unions amounted to 52% in Norway, 65% in Finland, 84% in Iceland, 66% in Sweden, and 67% in Denmark. By comparison, between 20 and 30% of employees are generally unionized in most other European countries, and in the U.S., it's 10%. Okay. This is one reason people would be a hell of a lot happier. Why? Because when you're in a union, we are collectively looking out for our class interests. And so people are going to get paid more, going to get better benefits, going to get more time off, and you're going to be a more fulfilled person if you're not just chasing a paycheck all day, every day, trying to keep the fucking lights on. So this is good for workers. This is good for the middle class. This is good for making people feel more fulfilled. You know, if you don't get all your meaning and purpose from your job, well, then you have to get it on your free time. But if you don't have any fucking free time, it's hard to get some meaning, right? Okay, so now, look at this one. Key vacation rules to be aware of in Sweden. And this is, I think I have the chart up here in just a second, right here. Yeah, okay. So I'll sum it up for you. Vacation time in a lot of these Nordic countries, you get a whole bunch of paid vacation time, paid sick time, paid maternity leave, paid paternity leave. And these things are by law. So in other words, it's not like, yeah, we'll give you the time off, but you're not getting a fucking dime. It'll be like you are working and you get this time off and you get paid. Yeah, that's going to make people happy. If you have a fucking month off every year, if you have the equivalent of when you were a kid and it was summer vacation and you're off for a little, oh, hey, this is awesome. Imagine being an adult and having effectively a summer vacation. Might not be literally in the summer, but you could have, people are going to feel a little bit better in that scenario, aren't they? Oh, I could actually do things I want to do that make me happy? Like, yeah. Crazy idea, right? Then there's this. Access to healthcare in the Scandinavian countries. So when you look at them, the specifics and the particulars definitely vary, right? There's different versions of universal healthcare systems in these different countries. But the connecting tissue in all the countries is universal healthcare. Some of them have a single-payer system. Some of them have a multi-payer system. Some of them have a UK-style system where it's all government. It's all nationalized. Others have a system where it's public money going to private hospitals and private doctors. It's a mix all over the place. But the connecting tissue is universal healthcare, free at the point of service. Gee, you think that's going to make people happier? I wonder if 41% of Americans have medical debt. The number one cause of bankruptcy in this country is medical bills. Gee, do you think it's a weight off your shoulders if you don't have to worry about going bankrupt because a family member has fucking cancer? Gee, I wonder. That's a real hard one to figure out, isn't it? And I want to show you this. U.S., the only advanced economy that does not require employers to provide paid vacation time, report says. This is an old article, to be fair. It's from 2013, but not much has changed. And so it's hard to see. This is kind of blurry. and it won't even let me click on it here, but the United States, 0 paid holidays and paid vacation days. And all these other countries just blowing us out of the water, man. Blowing us out of the water. So those countries, the people in those countries self-report being much happier because they get better wages. Workers are looked out for more. They have collective bargaining. They get more time off for self-fulfillment and self-actualization, free healthcare. A lot of these countries have free or nearly free college, right? You don't have to worry about, like, the basics are kind of they look after your basics in the social democracies. The basics are taken care of. The necessities of life are taken care of. And it's a lot easier for people to get by and feel happy and feel fulfilled if you don't have to worry about the bare minimum shit, right? We have to worry about it here. Mix that with a highly atomized society under capitalism and with technology where people are immersed in a digital world most of the time, and mix that with political corruption where there's zero faith in our institutions, rightly so. All these illegal wars we threw trillions of dollars at and the torture and all that stuff. Put all that together, and yeah, people are really like, this is miserable. This is miserable. The one final thing I'd say, though, is don't be a doomer and don't be a nihilist. We're like, this will never change and it's always going to be like that. No, it will go where the culture demands it goes, right? And any sort of change takes time. But in the same way, it's not inevitable things get better. It's also not inevitable things get worse. I believe in chaos theory that, like, shit just sort of happens over time and happens with random trajectories and random patterns. And so right now we're in a downturn. Right now we're going in the wrong direction. But that doesn't mean it's going to stay like that. And eventually we'll go in the other direction. We just have to make that happen, right? So I don't want to make this sound doomer or nihilistic, but there are real answers as to how to make people happier, how to improve the system. And what we need to do is acknowledge that there are real answers, learn from the countries that are above us, and start implementing some of those changes. Easier said than done, but that should be our goal. That should be our aim. If we make us a thriving social democracy, people will definitely self-report being much happier. Because you know what? Even if you give me all the stuff that they got in these social democracies, but I live in one of those countries, let me tell you something. I would not be okay with the sun setting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I would not be okay with those long, cold-ass, snowy-ass winters. So even with all this stuff, I'd be miserable if I was in some of these Nordic countries. But imagine having some nice weather, end of social democracy. Boom, now we're talking, baby. Now I'll self-report that I'm happy off the charts. So really sad that the U.S. plummeted so low, but I understand why it is. I think it's pretty clear to see why it is, and that needs to change. All right, guys, that's the show, y'all. Love y'all very much. Everybody do me a big favor. Please subscribe to the channel. Helps out in the algorithm. Costs you nothing. Click that bell icon so you get a notification every single time a video comes out. Leave a comment. Leave a like. All that fun stuff. Share the video around. Show it to your uncle, your conservative uncle. Maybe he'll hate me. Maybe he'll like me. But hey, why not? Take a stab in the dark. Give it a shot. And that's all I got for you. You can support the show on Patreon with the link below or tip with the thanks button on YouTube. Again, I deeply appreciate it. I've never talked to an advertiser, never want to. You guys fund this through small dollar donations. I'm very, very thankful for you. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Everybody have a great rest of your day. Tune into Crystal Kyle and Friends later in the week. Peace. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.